Welcome, everybody, to another episode of On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for On This Day, Mike Goodpaster, and today we're going to talk about, for my money, maybe the greatest sporting event in the history of mankind, and that would be Ali Frazier won March the 8th, 1971. Now, throughout history, there have been twosomes as well paired as salt and pepper in every field imaginable. Biblical, you got Cain and Abel. Musical, Gilbert and Sullivan. Financial, Dow and Jones. Sport is no exception. Its most famous pairing, the names of Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. The two forever linked in the memory of sports fans, almost as if you can't say one without saying the other. Now, Ali Frazier won was called the fight of the century. And the reason it was is you had two undefeated heavyweight champions. Now, how can you have two undefeated heavyweight champions, you might ask? Well, Muhammad Ali won the heavyweight title over Sonny Liston in February of 1964. He defended that title for 4 years, and then he was stripped because he refused he refused military induction for the Vietnam War. He was a conscientious objector, not a draft dodger. Joe Frazier was a guy who, in 1964, had lost to Buster Mathis in the Olympic trials and came up short of his Olympic dreams. Buster Mathis, though, was injured. Joe Frazier took over and won the gold medal. So what you had was two Olympic gold medalists, two undefeated heavyweight champions that were going to clash on March the 8th, 1971. Now, 1968-69, you needed a heavyweight champion. Ali was basically put in exile by the United States government. And Frazier squeaked by Oscar Bonavita, being knocked down twice, but eventually winning a close disputed decision. He then beat Jerry Quarry in what was one of the great heavyweight fights you'll ever see that people don't really talk about. He then beat Jimmy Ellis to win the New York State Athletic Commission's heavyweight championship. So, Muhammad Ali retired officially about a year before Ali Frazier won. Ali finally got a boxing license in Atlanta, or in Georgia, to fight in Atlanta at the Omni against Jerry Quarry. Jerry Quarry was one of the top contenders in all of boxing. Ali had been out of the ring for almost 3 years. He dominated Quarry, cut him, beat him up, stopped him in the third round. Then after that was in October. After that, he fought Oscar Bonavita, who was the same man that I talked about before who gave Joe Frazier all he could handle. Ali won the bout, stopping Bonavita in the 15th round. A couple months later, you've got March the 8th, 1971. And it was the first time the two names were linked in the ring when they met for the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship. But this was more than just a fight. It was an event. One that captured the imagination not just of the fight crowd, but of the entire world. It was not heralded merely as another of those fights labeled fight of the century, but it was called the fight, as if there had never been another one like it. And there hadn't, and there's never been one like it since, and I don't think that there'll ever be another one like it. The bout possessed all the right ingredients of a great event. Two undefeated heavyweight champions fighting for the most money earned by an athlete in history, let alone a boxer. $2.5 million apiece fought in the midst of a turbulent debate over the Vietnam War, with one of the participants adopted by those that supported the war, the other by those that opposed it, held in the Mecca of boxing, Madison Square Garden, in front of a riotous assemblage. Hours before the doors officially opened, thousands milled around outside the garden with scalpers evident everywhere, offering $150 tickets for as much as $1,000. And remember, this is in 1971. When the doors finally opened, those with tickets went through hell to get inside as the crowd surged forward in an unstoppable tide, many waiting for up to an hour to just get through the doors. This was not your typical boxing main event where nobody showed up until it was time for the main event. People were so interested in this fight and so excited to get to this fight that you got in as soon as the doors opened. As the 20,000 people filled Madison Square Garden, many in full-length white sable coats with matching hats, And those were just the men. The women wore tight-fitting outfits with several in hot pants. They began to spot celebrities in the crowd. Over there was Burt Lancaster doing a closed-circuit telecast. At ringside, Frank Sinatra taking pictures for Life magazine. Up in the balcony was former Vice President Hubert Humphrey. He was a former Vice President, and he's sitting in the balcony. And everywhere, the too numerous to be mentioned, for everyone who was anyone was there, and the spotting of each created a stir. Finally, the house lights dimmed, and the crowd was on its feet hollering, "Ali, Ali," as they caught a glimpse of Muhammad Ali dressed in red trunks with white stripes and a red robe with shoes tasseled with bow-like laces, coming down the aisle, throwing punches in the air. Then, almost as if a choir master had waved off the cheering, an eerie momentary silence, and then another roar as they spotted Smokin' Joe Frazier emerging from the shadows, clad in velvet gold and green trunks with matching robe. These two men were ready to fight. This was not Tyson Fury with a king's crown and some women carrying him in on a throne, and this was definitely not Deontay Wilder, whose dumbass wore a 45-pound suit that made him look like a space alien. These men were ready for a fight. The crowd was ready for a fight. And that's exactly what they got this night. At the bell, Ali came out in a circle, up on his toes, showing fluidity and rhythm in his every move, while Frazier, as advertised, came straight at Ali, bobbing his head and moving his hands. Ali, true to his pre-fight words to be pecking and a poking, pouring water on his smoking, threw jabs at the approaching Frazier, then moved away out of harm's way. For the first two rounds, the pattern continued with Ali circling, feigning, and throwing his jabs at the ever-pursuing Frazier, intent on disassembling Ali into smaller, neater pieces. For before the fight, Ali had dissed Frazier, calling him everything from an Uncle Tom to ugly to chump to ignorant and dumb. Frazier had called Ali a clown and a phony. He wanted to exact revenge. Frazier would get his chance in the third round, as Ali retreated to the ropes, where Joe began to work him over, connecting with a right to the body rather than merely lacing him gingerly with left hooks, one of which landed squarely on Ali's jaw. But Ali, coming off the rope, shook his head as if to tell the crowd that it had no effect on him, and the crowd roared. Ali even took time to tell Frazier, "God wants you to lose tonight." To which Frazier snorted back, "Tell your God he's in the wrong house tonight." The momentum of the fight had changed, and rounds 4 and 5 were more of the same, with Frazier moving Ali into the ropes and teeing off with howitzer-like punches. In the 6th, Ali got back up on his toes and off the ropes, peppering the always incoming Frazier with jabs and more than an occasional uppercut. But Frazier was relentless no matter what he was hit with. He was like a madman that would not be denied on this night. The 7th was more of the same, but in the 8th, Ali again retreated to the ropes, where he motioned for Frazier to come hit him, dropping his hands as an invitation. Joe, too, dropped his in response, and now Ali landed a 1-2. Now it was Frazier who laughed mockingly at Ali and moved in, forcing Ali to hold on. In round 10, Ali again retreated to the ropes while Joe worked him over with his left hand. Seconds before the bout, Ali came to life, throwing 1, 2, 3 jabs and then a left-right combination. You don't see heavyweights do that nowadays, do you? Everything changed in the 11th round. As Ali again retreated to the ropes, Frazier caught him with a left hook from hell, landing it flush on Ali's jaw and shifting his center of gravity. For a second, Ali's knees went rubbery. A second left hook from Frazier landed with the sound of a blast that levels 5 or 6 bystanders, and Ali's legs hardly upheld the promise they had made the rest of his body. But Ali went into a dance, pretending he wasn't hurt, momentarily staying Frazier's attack as Joe considered whether he was playing possum or not. Then it was back to the attack as the bell rang. You could have written ditto or etc. in rounds 12 and 13 as Frazier continued backing Ali up, raking him over in a stop-me-if-you've-seen-this-one-before manner. Ali managed to change the course of the fight in the 14th, connecting with a vicious left hook to Frazier's head and landing 1-2 combinations as he moved around the ring, the slower Frazier unable to catch him. The 15th and final round was not anticlimactic. As the two came to the center of the ring and touched gloves, the crowd stood as one and roared, the outcome in their collective minds still in doubt. Now it was Ali moving deliberately, with Frazier still pursuing him, as one writer described it, like a wild beast caught in a thicket. Then as Ali went straight back and moved his left foot as if he was getting ready to throw a punch, Joe started a left hook, but he pulled it back and reloaded it. He launched it again, getting all 205 pounds behind it, exploding it on Ali's jaw. Ali crashed to the canvas, the red tassels on his shoes flying over his head. Miraculously, he was up from a punch that would have felled tall buildings at the count of 3. His jaw swollen to the size of a pumpkin, he managed to hold on to Frazier for the rest of the round. As his assistant trainer, Bundy Brown, had said, that was the blow that did it, that blew out our candles, making the reading of the judges' scoring a mere formality, 11-4, 9-6, 8-6-1, all to the heavyweight champion, Joe Frazier. Ali's dressing room after the fight was different from any of his previous ones. The usual backslappers were replaced by an almost wake-like quiet. When Bundini called him champ, Ali quietly said, "Don't call me champ. Joe's the champ now." Now, if you watch this fight, which I did to be able to do this, of course, you will see there is actually a documentary out there called The Fight, where it's just crowd noise and the noise from the ring. And they've got cameras set up around the ring, and you can hear the blows. You can hear these guys hitting each other. And it sounds like two grown men taking baseball bats to each other. And if you watch that, you'll understand why Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua are nothing special. These were two men that actually did hate each other, that actually wanted to hurt each other. And on this night, March the 8th, 1971, Joe Frazier may have been the greatest heavyweight of all time, just for that one night. They would go on to fight 2 more times, with Ali fairly easily winning the second fight against Joe Frazier in 1974. And then in 1975, after upsetting George Foreman, they went to Manila in the Philippines and fought a third fight. The third fight is the fight that people call the Thrill in Manila and maybe the greatest fight of all time, heavyweight-wise, but it's not. This first fight was. The third fight was 2 men that had been slowed by age, but still had the same hatred, that still went to war. The first fight was the most skillful war in boxing history. And if you've never seen it, you need to go watch it. And if you have seen it, you need to watch it again, and you need to make sure, if you're a boxing fan, that your kids have seen it. Because on this night, March the 8th, 1971, was the greatest night in the history of boxing. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Make sure you check out On This Day, most every day at thegruelingtruth.com. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. Follow me at Twitter, at Grueling Truth. And for now, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.